At the annual sleep meeting, there was a fascinating seminar on sleep and emotion. And I got to hear Dr. Matthew Walker from Berkeley discuss some extremely interesting and exciting research about the relationship between REM sleep and emotion. And in a nutshell, the projects used a series of visual stimuli, basically pictures of people looking happy or sad, or other types of graphics that would be expected to trigger certain emotions. And these are standard items that are used in psychological research attempting to understand more about people's emotional reactivity or how they work with emotion, how they might cope with it. Now in the research, he had two groups. One group would look at these pictures and get rated on their responses in the morning. Then later that day, one of the groups would actually take a nap and the other group would stay awake. And then still later in the day, after the group had awakened from the nap and the other group had done their activities, he repeated the same testing. And it was very clear that after the nap, the patient's responses were very different. That is to say, those who took the nap actually responded more favorably. That is, they didn't just see pictures that were happy and they had the same degree of happiness as before. They had a similar set of stimuli, of course, similar kinds of pictures, not the same ones, but they were actually happier. They responded in a more upbeat or positive fashion. However, for the negative stimuli, where they looked at these pictures that would produce more unpleasant emotions, I shouldn't say necessarily negative emotions because all emotions can have their value, but these more unpleasant emotions such as anger or sadness or fear, and those emotions actually were dampened. They were muted and much less intense in terms of the patient's reaction. And the people in the nap group had this improvement in terms of their coping, so to speak, that was significantly better than the group that did not nap. Now, the other part of this that was so interesting is it was about 20 people in each group, and he looked at the 20 people in the nap group, and he looked to see, because they were studied with the electrodes and so forth, polysomnography, and the group that actually was causing all the change was the group that went into REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, during their nap. And so that was the key that showed most of the changes in the data. Having gone into REM sleep and then coming out and being retested was actually the leading factor from this particular study showing why the person's coping, meaning having a more positive or upbeat mood in response to the happier looking pictures versus having less of a reactive mood to the pictures that show more unpleasant things. So the reason this is so interesting is because the issue of REM then appears to be clearly linked to the issue of how you process emotion. And therefore, it would also be linked to how you recover from emotion that is traumatizing to you. For example, something such as post-traumatic stress disorder. So this research really begins to shape some new ideas on how looking at REM sleep in particular in people who have been traumatized might be a way for us to understand how to better treat them.